Welcome to the celebration of life for Edsel Blair. The love and support that has been shown during this difficult time is beyond words, and the Blair family would like to say thank you for that, and thank you for being here. We had a veteran who was going to come and speak about how he used to go over to our dad's house and watch Gunsmoke with him. And talk about what it was like to be a veteran and how much our dad meant to him. Unfortunately, the bad roads have prevented him from getting here. So we are doing this service ourselves. And we would now like to read the obituary. Dustin?
Thank you everybody for coming. Edsel Homer Blair, age 79 of St. Ignace, Michigan, died on November 20th, 2024. He was born on November 22nd, 1944 in Mount Clemens, Michigan, to Vern and Roma Brock Blair. Edsel graduated from LaSalle High School with the class of 1964. After graduation, he went to work for Arnold Transit until he was drafted into the United States Army in 1965. He served in the Vietnam War as a radio tech until he was honorably discharged in 1967. Upon returning, he worked on the SS Chief Powhatan, shoveling coal until he landed his career with the Mackinac Bridge Authority in 1969. Well, he worked until he retired in 1997. Edsel enjoyed street drags in his early years, as well as mud racing and bogs, attending auto and monster truck shows and collecting cars. In the fall, he would be found rifle hunting. He also liked to show off when he played checkers, going for a Sunday drive, cruising in his Corvettes, and looking forward to family gatherings at his home, especially birthday parties. He also watched a lot of TV and listened to most of the local sports. Edsel was survived by his sons David and April Blair, and Danielle Blair, Renee Rinkinen, and daughters Dawn, husband Dustin Wilcox, and Diane and Troy Husky. The mother of their children, Miriam Blair, and grandchildren, Trevor Blair, Tabitha Blair, Taylor Blair, Trey Blair, Tegan Blair, and Tristan Blair, and Destiny Steinberg. Great-grandchildren, McKenna Blair, and Brooklyn Kreiderman, sister Beverly Frazier, and brother Robert and Brenda Blair. Edsel was preceded in his death by his parents Vern and Roma, and sisters Betty, Wayne, Belle, and Elaine, Sonny Anderson.
I'm going to try it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good job.
Anyone who met him knew he was a lover of automobiles. He also liked to drive. He enjoyed going for car rides for something to do, looking at Christmas lights, and going for Sunday drives. Sundays were an exceptional treat because he would stop for snacks like pickled bologna, and it was the only time us kids were allowed to eat in his immaculate cars. In the summertime, he would also cruise on the motorcycle or in one of those fancy cars. After he retired, he traveled a bit more. Occasionally, he would drive to Marquette, which is a 3-hour drive, by the way, just to enjoy lunch at Red Lobster. His sister-in-law, Hazel, always joked about how the family would travel 14 hours just for a cup of coffee. He joked about how once they took a drive and ended up in Kentucky. True story, I was there. And he was always the first stop when showing off a new car, even if it was only new to us. He would have to inspect it briefly, and then he'd say, "That's a nice one," or "That's a dandy." He had nicknames for everyone he met and every single family member. Hanger, String Bean, Lucy, Ernie, Bigfoot, Jimbo, the list goes on. And he even nicknamed his vehicles Big Red, Big F, the Pickle. And he had the memory of an elephant. So once you had a nickname, he never forgot. He also never let you live down any of those things that made him laugh. But beneath all of his sarcasm and wittiness, he was one of the most generous people you could ever meet. Anytime a family in the community experienced a tragedy, such as the loss of their home or a loved one, he was the first to ask what they needed. On a holiday such as Thanksgiving, there was always a full table to include neighbors and friends because he didn't want anyone to be alone. He always told his family that the door was always open, and when you left, he would say, "Come back." If you ever found yourself in a dilemma, he was always happy to assist. He even let people borrow tools, money, you name it. Now we're going to talk about some memories and stories. David? David's the oldest child, so we're going to let him share his story first.
I'm not going to be able to see this, so
We can make it really big, but I don't
even
know.
with glasses I can't see it, so we're just going to wing it.
You can do that.
I got a lot of stories, some I can't talk about. He taught me how to drive when I was about 14. But anyway, one of the things that we had done together is he came home from the Mackinac Bridge one day and said, "I got a ride lawnmower. We wanted to do it, Senator." I said, "Oh, really?" Me and Dan's arguing about who's going to be the first one to take it for a ride. Be home about 4:35. Perfect. We waiting for this ride lawnmower to come home. He came home with a Jeep Cherokee, and he had a push lawnmower tied on top of it. That was the end of me and Dan argument. I'm going for a ride on this ride lawnmower, you know.
There is a picture out there on the picture board of the lawnmower on top if you haven't seen it. It's really
Right.
funny.
There was another time, and I'm sure Billy Fraser remembers this. He said I was 14 and he had bought a brown truck there called Dark and Handsome and picked us up at school. And so I can't wait to turn 16. I take it for a ride, and drive to school. At turn 16, he says, "You go straight to school and back with it." Sure. Me and Dan jump in. He says, "Let's stop and pick up Billy." It's on the way to high school. We picked him up there and come down First Street and turn by Jake Tamlin's there about 2nd, 3rd Street, and we thought we'd step on the throttle a little bit. We did a 360 so fast it scared all of us. We made it to school. We found reverse in a hurry.
And then you told us that Billy decided he didn't want to ride
I
home with
asked
you.
Billy if he wanted to ride home from school. He said, "No, I'm good." I think he was about white as a ghost, like the rest of us. I never did tell my dad that story.
He heard it now.
Yeah, he did. But yeah, going back in time with him, you know, he learned a lot and I taught a lot, and I just wish I could remember everything he's told us or said something to us about, you know, but it'll come in time, you know. I feel that it'll kick back. Pictures bring back a lot of memories just looking at the pictures, you know. And, you know, I remember, you know, a lot of things. Like I said, there's some stories I can't talk about, but teach me how to drive at 14 years old, you know. So when I took driver's ed, Gary Olson lived around the corner and he goes, "Blair, I know you know how to drive." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I've seen you driving your dad around quite a bit." I said, "No." She said, "Couldn't you rely on it when the teacher seen you and caught you, you know?" So, well, I'm going to let somebody else speak there, and if there's anybody else that's got something to say, and we'll go from there, or Diane to finish.
Got some more stories.
All right,
Yeah.
take care. Thanks.
Another story that we had spoke about was David said that he remembered playing in the water puddles near their home on Dickinson Street with Brother Dan. They were probably about elementary-aged kids having a blast, and of course they came home all soaking wet. Well, in the later years, our dad told David that when he was coming home that day, he saw the kids playing and thought, wow, what rotten kids. And then as he drove closer, he thought, oh boy, those are my rotten kids. One of Dan's favorite stories is that our dad used to pick on him about watching football because he always took it so seriously, and anybody that knows Dan knows he still does. But over the years, Dan was able to influence him, and he began to watch all of the Michigan football games. Eventually, we even got him to watch the Lions games. However, our dad would usually root for the opposing team just to irritate Dan during the games. And Dan also influenced his music. Let's just say that our dad still has a Rob Zombie CD in the car to this day. Dawn believes that one way that our dad shaped her into the person she is today is because in the early elementary years, she would make sandwiches for him. She would charge 5 cents for each slice of bread, 10 cents for cheese, 10 cents for bologna, and so on. Then she would write up an itemized statement to accompany the sandwich, and he could not gain possession of it until he paid up. He often complained about paying these prices since he said he already bought the food, and she would respond that those were strictly labor charges. He was raising a food service entrepreneur and had no idea at the time, but she just completed her 20th season as an entrepreneur in the food industry. And our dad loved Up and Smoke Barbecue. A favorite story of Dawn's is when he called and told her that he had made a mess of one of his candles. He used to burn candles all the time in the evenings. And he burned them daily and enjoyed them, so we didn't think too much of it until the full story came out. He had a vanilla-scented candle and thought the scent was too weak. So he took an old dried-up pine cone out of the decoration of another candle and threw it into the vanilla candle to try to make the scent stronger. Well, as you can imagine, that did not go very well. The pine cone immediately lit on fire, and the candle burned uncontrollably. Wax began to spew all over, making one huge mess. Of course, he thought it was funny. When our dad began living alone and needed some help, I never once thought twice about stepping in to assist. I began helping him with small things like running errands, which eventually led to all of grocery shopping, prescription pickup, coordinating appointments, getting him to appointments, just taking care of him on a daily basis. The list goes on. But to say that he was dependent on me would be false. I always told him that we made a great team because we needed each other. He was always my first phone call when I had exciting news, the one I vented to when I had a rough day, the person I counted on for solid advice. He always knew just what to say and was never judgmental. He was just a fantastic listener. He was my first stop every single day when I got out of work. Sorry, Troy. I called him my best buddy because we talked about anything and everything. We just thoroughly enjoyed our time together. Anybody who knew one of us knew how close we were because we often spoke of each other. But he often expressed to me how much he cared about the entire family. Learning how to drive with him was interesting because he was so laid back. It was difficult to tell what he was thinking. To this day, anytime I think about not coming to a complete stop at a stop sign, I can hear him say, "That's a rolling stop." And he made me drive down Worth Road in that big, hideous 1973 Ford Galaxy. He said, "You have to feel the steering on this thing. It's called Velvet Touch." Just imagine a 15-year-old driving a gigantic car with steering so sensitive I could barely stay in between the two white lines. And when I got my permit, he took me by the hand and led me into the garage. He told me that I had to learn how to check the oil, tire pressure, change a tire, do all that stuff. And I told him, well, this is not required by the state. His reply was, it's required by me. So at 16, I was driving alone one day, my car stalled, and I still called him. Traveling with him and me being the youngest was very interesting because there were often comments like, yeah, it's so nice to see you traveling with your grandchildren. And he always just went with it. Once I remember him saying, yeah, we try to take her along when we can. Like he had a choice. One spring, he walked out to the Red Barn to grab some folding chairs so we could sit outside. About halfway to the front yard, he decided to sit down. Well, Mom and I were working in the flowers in the front yard when I heard, Edna, help! That was Mom's nickname in case anybody was wondering. So we immediately began to walk toward the backyard. And what do we see but him sitting in the chair in the middle of the yard? Except he fell through the chair and his knees were literally touching his chin. I was laughing so hard I could barely help him. And with a straight face, he said, this one's gonna need some new webbing. Another time during the summer months, I was in the living room watching TV, and we went outside to replace a light bulb in the porch light. Shortly after going outside, he came back inside and said, what is wrong with this? I looked over to see him standing in the doorway with a plastic flower pot around his foot and up to his shin. He said that he thought the flower pot was terracotta, so he turned it upside down and stood on it in the effort to reach the porch light. Well, he quickly found out that a plastic flower pot would not hold him. I'll never forget that. He walked in and he was like, what is wrong with this? I could go on for days talking to him and telling these funny stories. I'd probably write a book, and I may. There are just so many stories and so many memories. These funny stories and amazing memories are what will help myself, the rest of the family, and anyone else who is close to him move forward when life feels really difficult. We will think of him and smile, and that is exactly what he wanted. We would like to open up the floor for anyone else who has fond memories or funny stories they would like to share at this time. Who would like to come up first?
Hello everyone, my name is Destiny. I am Dan's daughter, but most importantly, I am Ed's granddaughter. But to him, I was Ernie. I have no idea why, but I thought it was funny. Enough about me. I would like to take some time to focus on the memories I shared with my grandpa that I think everyone will enjoy. My grandpa always had a way to get me out of my shell, to make me smile and laugh, even though I was a very quiet and shy child, just like my dad. When my grandpa would babysit me, he would often ask how Lucy was doing, but as most of you know, that's my mother's name, or my mother's name was Lisa, not Lucy. Another one of our favorite things we would also do is watch TV, including cartoons, NASCAR, or Judge Judy, and he would always sit in his favorite recliner. Or we would play a lot of Connect 4. I'm still the champion, but also I believed he let me win because that's the man he was. Lucy and Ernie are only a couple of nicknames he came up with, but now I know where my dad gets it from because my dad would call me Mimi. Grandpa would also have a cigar while sitting on the front porch, and I can still smell that nasty cigar today. My grandpa was kind-hearted, loving, caring, and so much more. I will miss my grandpa very much, as I wish I could have seen him one last time, or given him one last hug. He will forever be missed by all of us. Fly high, Grandpa. Good job.
First off, I just want to thank everybody for being here with us today. My grandpa was a devoted father to 4 and grandfather to 7. I am lucky to say I am one of his grandchildren is an understatement. I am truly grateful for it and will be the rest of my life. It is a challenge to speak today, to put into words the many things I would like to say about him. I'll keep this short and simple just the way he liked it. My grandpa was the glue for the family. He let us celebrate Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, and other events at his home, as he loved having everybody around. Some of the best memories occurred during these times. He always had something funny to say to get everybody laughing. He was a hoot to be around. I will miss him dearly, but I will forever be thankful for what he has taught me over time about cool cars and about life in general. The man loved his cars. So every time I see a cool car in the summer, it will remind me of our time together.
My grandpa was so funny. He always said to me, I have a spider crawling on my leg. He called me Margaret or Maggie, but my name is Tegan. And he loved everyone, and he wanted everyone to continue his life, but it is never a goodbye. It's always see you later.
I'll never forget, he loved watching the car auction shows on TV. Loved them. He knew everything about them. He knew what year it was by the headlights. He knew what engine was it, right from stock, and he knew the price. I'll never forget, he loved his cars. Sitting out in car show, he knew what engine was in it and what car was going by the road, a half mile away before it even showed up. Some memories I'll never forget.
As a lot of you guys know, I'm Davis. I'm the oldest grandson, and it's like meeting Grandpa and stuff, hanging out. Same thing, like Trey said, Barrett Jackson auctions. You see that? That's what they only made that. They only did that paint for 1 year, and I remember, shortly after he was unable to drive, him same thing, showing off the new car. It's like, my dad, hey, get in, we're going for a ride. And he had bought, a 5.0 Mustang, and it's a nice car. And it was probably about 6-7 years ago. I stopped at the house, just there to visit, and it was car show weekend. And, I was like, I'd like to take Grandpa out for a ride, I never have. And I was like, Grandpa, there's quite a few cars around town. You'd be impressed. It's nice out. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, let's get in the car. So we went in the car and went and did some banking and stuff and went through town. And I was heading back home. And he's like, you know what? Turn around. We're going back through town. And we ended up going through town 4 more times. And same thing. He's like, see that car right there? It's a 62 Chrysler. See the angle? 45 headlights. And I'm sitting there looking at it. And yeah, and he's like, yeah, that year, 62, yeah, that's probably a 413. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, 413? Like, no, it's 330, Grandpa. And he's like, no, that's the cute motor. He's like, that was one of the good ones. And so, as with the love of cars and stuff, Dan's got a couple cars, Dad's got a couple cars. This summer, I bought a truck, and I wanted to get it done by a truck show, but I was fortunate enough to bring it to his house before he passed. And I was like, I know you can't see it, but I'll go outside and wrap it up for you. And he said, it sounds pretty good. So, But that's all I got, and yeah, he will be missed dearly. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh. Just extra.
Hi, I'm Miriam, and I have no paper. I'm just going to tell you what I think in memory. I was a senior in school, and Mama drove, and I always rode with her, and we'd see this car with this 66 Thunderbird, and it was cool, all dark green, and he'd sloop down and waving. So it went on and on for days and probably weeks. And then later on, we see him again. He's got a 66 Chevy. Whoa, and he's laying back there waving at us. And so one day I'm at the A&P, one of my friends, and we met him with another guy. And it was a cool story. So I got in. Hey, guys, you want to go for a ride? Sure, we jumped in. So I got in the back seat, and just Ed looked at me and he said, "No, you got to get up here." I said, "I do." Oh, well, so we switched. I was always with him every day. He came to my house every night. My mom sat up on the Cheeseman Hill. He'd sit there and look out the window. "Where's he?" And he'd see those lights coming across the hill, and he'd say, "I bet you that's him." So it went on and on. So he kept saying, "I'm going to buy a new car." And he had a new car. But yeah, "I'm getting a brand new one," he said one of these times. So he shows up and he has a 69 Chevy. 5 shift. I didn't know how to drive it, but okay. Oh, that's cool. So he says to my mom, "You want to go for a ride?" "Well, yeah." So they didn't at me and never come back. I'm getting tired. Henry and Martha were sleeping. And I'm thinking, it's getting late, 10, 11 o'clock. So I laid on the couch, and here he comes. Here's Mom and him, and they had gone to Carp River over at their uncle. The Blairs over there. "I got to show my car." Well, I'm thinking, holy, that helps. But anyway, every night he was there to see me. Every night, except once. He never told me he wasn't coming back. And he had gone on those races car down in Detroit. I've been down there, but why'd you let me know? I thought he was coming. But anyway, that's how Ed did it all the time. So I don't know how many cars, new cars, old cars, trucks, whatever, anything that went with an engine, motorcycles, four-wheelers, little bikes. I went on a mini bike, and I didn't know how to stop it. Well, oh my God. But the big thing is when, in the very beginning, I should have told you when he did the shift, oh boy, that was a hot car. He used to go out and race on Cheeseman Road with his friend, Paucan, and our girls would stand out there and watch him. That was so much fun. I can still see him in that car, but he taught me how to do the shift. So after we're married, so I'm down at the IGA. Well, I have to go see Teeny, go get some meat. He had the best meat, but it was that little knoll behind in St. Ignace. So I had to go in the knoll, and I'm trying to stack it up. Put on the luncheon. Couldn't back it up. I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? We only live down in Dickinson. I thought, it's not too far, but I got to get going. So I thought, what can I do? Well, I went in to get Teeny. "Teeny, you need to back up the car for me. I can't do it." It was so cool. I'm telling you, and life went on and every note. And I met him in 1968, and I've known him forever. I've been at the house supporting all my kids, and I'm telling you, what, like Diane said, I'd have a book like that on my pages. Oh my God, so many good times. So when I see people, just keep smiling and have fun, because I'm crazy. My family are crazy. That's how we are. We are crazy. That's how we live. We make every one day at a time. And I am sure to hell going to miss Dad, because I was there a lot, all the time. I could go in any door. You don't have to knock, really. I'm here. It didn't matter. Anytime, all his life. Anybody that wanted to eat when we were going on with family, anytime that come in, any friends, their friends would come in. You want to eat tonight? Yeah, sit down. Yeah. Take a bun and toss it across the table. And the one kid said, Daryl, there, Dave's friend, and he says, oh my God. He said, well, you got it, didn't you? It was so much fun. That's all I can say. And I am so blessed that we have a very good family. Thank you very much for being here today and speaking. I love my children and my family because we made it that way.
I think we definitely all got his love of cars. I told him I wanted to buy another Corvette in the future, and he said, what on earth would you need another summer car for? And I said, because you had one for every day of the week while you were working, so... Thank you all for sharing. Please continue to share these stories and memories as the days, months, and years go by. May Edsel continue to bring you smiles and laughter. In closing, I would like to say a quote. There are several people in our lives that never leave us even after they are gone. Author unknown. Please join us in the burial cemetery at Grokep Cemetery on US 2 to follow. Thanks again for coming.